everybody, I'm Jen, and I am here to tell you about how I had my baby in prison in 2011. So some of you might already know me and a little bit about my story. I did an interview with my friend Jessica Kemp for her YouTube channel, and I told a little bit about my story and how I had my baby while I was an inmate. So in 2011, I got sentenced to a parole violation for 18 months. I ended up going to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Westchester, New York, and applied for the nursery program. Everyone goes to Bedford Hills if you are a woman and you are incarcerated, because that's where they do their classification. So classification is where everybody gets their files read and they decide whether they're going to be like minimum, medium, maximum, and then you go to your allotted prisons from there. So believe it or not, they actually house the nursery program in maximum security facility in Bedford. So I applied for the nursery. Now there's certain steps that you have to do. You have to speak with you actually get a counselor, kind of like in school actually. So I wrote my counselor. She sent me the application. I applied. Your application is, they want to know if you have any other children, if you've ever had any CPS cases, if you have arson, if you have been convicted of a violent crime, things of that nature. So my crime was grand larceny due to my substance use disorder. So I applied and sent my application back. My counselor approved it. Once she approves it, on the bottom level, then it goes up to Albany. It actually goes, I believe it goes to the commissioner of the jail, the prison that you're at, and then they approve it and then they send it to Albany. So I got approved. I got lucky. I got approved, and about a week and a half before I went into labor, I got moved into the nursery. On the nursery, it's in an older building, so you walk up a flight of steps and you walk into the lobby. Once you walk into the lobby, there's 4 different wings. The wing that's behind you when you walk up the steps is where you eat and your kitchen is and things like that. To the right, there's little babies and pregnant ladies, and to the left is older babies and moms. And then straight ahead is your rec room, where you have a greenhouse and carpeted floors for the baby and walkers and things like that. So about a week, maybe a little bit more, on a Wednesday night, I sneezed and I thought I peed my pants. And it turns out my water broke and I went into labor. I told the officer, and the officer called what's called the RMU. It's the medical center for the prison. So off to the RMU I went. They tested. They made sure that my water had broken, which it did. They called for an ambulance. I went out with a really nice female officer, and we went to Westchester Medical Center. And because my water had ruptured, it didn't break, but it ruptured, they made it so I had to stay. It was my first baby, my only biological baby, and I did not know you cannot eat. I did not know you cannot drink anything. I was not a happy camper. Being pregnant, you're hungry all the time to begin with, and I was literally, when I sneezed, I was making food. So I was not able to eat. They snuck me some apple juice, which was cool. And I had a very, very long 3 days. It took me a long time to deliver my daughter. I ended up having her 3 days later. I went in Wednesday, delivered her on Saturday. So my entire delivery, the actual delivery experience, I had a really great nurse that was there with me, so it made it a lot more bearable. But I wasn't prepared at all. I just was not prepared to be a mom, and I didn't know what to expect. And I'm there all alone in a hospital, no friends, no family, no familiar faces. Every couple hours the guards changed, and they were pretty decent to me, but nobody wants to deliver like that, especially your first baby, when you really have no idea what is going to happen or what to expect. It's just kind of sad, So I deliver my baby, and they put her on my chest, and I'm in shock. You always hear these stories about how you have your baby and you're head over heels in love with your child and, you know, the earth moves and whatever the case may be. That was not the case for me, to be quite honest. I didn't know what to do. Here's this little teeny tiny package sitting on my chest, you know, and the nurse was like, honey, touch her, she's yours. And I was like, oh, okay, because I figured that's what I was supposed to do, you know. And then they came and they took her and they weighed her, and I wanted to go in the bathroom, and I guess I just needed to get a second for myself. So I get up and I go to the bathroom, and when I come out, she's gone. I don't know, this is not normal procedure. I never did this before. So a few seconds, few minutes, whatever goes by, and I said to the nurse, like, where's my daughter? Like, where's my baby? Where'd she go? And they were like, oh, we brought her down to the nursery, you know, precautionary, you know, that's standard, da 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 da. So I was like, all right, can you bring her back? So the nurse was like, well, why? And I was like, well, I want to breastfeed. I want to exclusively breastfeed. I want that notated in her chart. I had thought long and hard about this before I had her, and I wanted to breastfeed, and that's it. I did not want her to have formula at all. That was my decision. It was what I wanted. The nurse was like, okay, I'll mark it in your chart, no problem. And she calls down to the nursery and they can't find my daughter. So for about 45 minutes, they cannot find my child. So I'm an inmate. It's not like I can get up and go walk down to the nursery and be like, where's my kid? At this point, I've only seen her for about 5 seconds. So I don't even really know what she looks like or who she is at this point. Like, we don't have any connection. All I know is I'm freaking out because I want my baby. Finally, a nurse comes in. She was like, so I found your daughter. She's in the ICU for children. She's in the NICU. And I was like, why? You said she was fine. They said, well, precautionary. You were in labor for so many days and she was in your birth canal for so long. Bacteria can get in and we're afraid she's going to have an infection. So we put her in ICU. She's in an incubator. And until her tests come back, we're going to start antibiotic. And I was like, doesn't anyone ask me? Don't I count? I know I'm an inmate, but I'm still her guardian. I'm still her parent. And the nurse was like, honey, I didn't even know. This wasn't up to me. So I was already off to a shoddy experience with being an inmate and having a child. I was lucky up until that point that I had such a good experience. So finally, I beg and I beg and I beg and I beg, and they take me down. They put me in a wheelchair and they take me down to NICU so I can nurse her. I nurse her, I check her out. I couldn't believe how long her eyelashes were and how long her nails were. And like, this was the first time that I really got to experience like, oh, this is mine. Like, I made this. This is mine. This is like, it was just like our first bonding moment. So after that, for the next couple of days, I think we stayed in the hospital together 2 or 3 days because I was like, I'm not leaving to go back to the facility without my baby. I said to the doctor that was there, she was pretty cool. She was pregnant too. I remember this. I was like, I don't care if you have to make something up, say a stitch popped, something, anything. Like, I'm not going back to the facility without my child. Like, you're crazy. I'm hours and hours away from home. Like, I don't have any family. I don't have any friends around. Like, my baby's not staying here by herself. She's being exclusively breastfed. Absolutely not. She worked with me. So Bella had to stay in the NICU for 3 days. So on the third, like, late morning, afternoon is when we left to go back to the facility. So I had a really cool overnight nurse in the prison wing of the hospital, and she was like, oh, you just had your baby, blah, blah, blah. She was just really kind-hearted. I said, please, I need a pump. I need a pump. I need a pump. I want to exclusively feed her, exclusively breastfeed her. So she was really cool, and she actually went and got me a pump. And I pumped. But in between this, you know, when I was able to beg to be brought down to NICU to see her, the first, like, 2 times I went, they just put me in a wheelchair, officer wheeled me down, and then I visited with Bella. Mind you, I had to wear a hospital gown. They would not give me any clothing. So, I don't know, you know, you just had a baby, and anyone who just had a baby knows you need panties, you need certain things. It was like dehumanizing a little bit in a sense. So then a new shift came on, and all of a sudden they were handcuffing me to the wheelchair and shackling my feet and then just pushing me through the entire hospital like that. It was just, I was super, super embarrassed. If I wasn't so adamant that I wanted to go see my baby and breastfeed her, I probably would have cried and refused to go. It was just horrible. So I get down there, you know, And I'm glad I got there as soon as I did, because the nurse on the staff in the NICU was about to give my daughter a bottle of formula, and I lost my mind. And she was very rude to me, and she was like, I don't even understand why we allow mothers like you in here. It was super embarrassing, and I couldn't say anything because I was on pins and needles, because at any point in time they could have taken me back to the facility and let my baby stay there until she was ready to be released from the hospital. So I bit my tongue and swallowed my pride, and I didn't say anything, and I just went about my day. Thankfully, like a day and a half later, we were both released together. I had her on New Year's Eve, so that also slowed the process because it was a holiday. But thankfully, we, January 3rd, went back to the prison together, and we stayed on the nursery for a long time. So as a new mom, I went through a lot of just learning, really. Like I said, Bella was exclusively breastfed because I was a parole violator. I was fortunate. I didn't have to do any mandatory programs that the state mandates you to do while you are incarcerated. And I got to stay with my daughter for all day, all the time. If I had to go up to the RMU, like for aftercare check and stuff, I would take her across the road. There's a little road in the prison. And that was like where the nursery program was for the moms that were programmed. And then she would have to go over there. It was like daycare. The lady who ran it is an amazing human being, and I respect her still to this day. I think she's wonderful. So the nursery program at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility is run by an outside source called Our Children. They're based out of Long Island City, in Queens. And I'm still in contact with a lot of those people still to this day. They really taught me how to be a mom and taught me things that I never knew. So once I got back to the nursery, I noticed a couple of, things. I was adjusting to being back there. I was adjusting to not being pregnant anymore and actually having a baby. And I was learning how to breastfeed her and care for her and myself at the same time. And I noticed something was wrong with her. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know 100% what it was, but something was wrong. Like, she didn't have proper range of motion. She all of a sudden couldn't nurse off my left breast. And she just seemed to be in pain all the time. Like, she just was super cranky, and I didn't know if that's how babies just were or what. So I mentioned something to the nursery manager. Like, I don't know, something seems wrong with my baby. She's just upset all the time. She just seems like she doesn't feel good all the time. And she basically was like, yeah, you're a first time mom and you don't know what you're talking about. So, sorry. So I thought long and hard about it. And the next time the pediatrician came to see the babies, because every Thursday was pediatrician day, and the pediatrician would come into the facility, into the nursery building, and would examine the babies. I said something to the doctor, and I was like, I know I'm a first-time mom, but something's not right. And the nursery manager went to go cut me off, and the doctor was like, no, let her continue. So I said, she can't turn her head, and she's just unhappy all the time, and she cries a lot. And so the doctor examined her neck and her shoulders and her head, and she agreed. She said, you're right. She said she has something she called torticollis. So she had in the base of her neck, all her ligaments and tendons were in a ball. They never stretched out because she was on my birth canal for so long. She never got a chance to fully stretch out and let her muscles and ligaments and tendons relax. So she basically, it's like the old school version of wry neck. So she basically had a stiff neck all the time. And as a newborn, you can't say like, can I have some Tylenol or this hurts? So what'd she do? She screamed. And when I tell you she screamed, she screamed. So because of that, she didn't have full range of motion on her neck or her arms. So she would scream if I laid her a certain way. So I was constantly laying her the way that she was most comfortable. But what was happening is the plates in her head were starting to shift because her head was still soft. So the pediatrician, gave me a referral that the prison had to take me to early intervention for Bella to get a not like an interview, but to get a doctor to see a therapist to see if she qualified for therapy, which she did right off the bat. She actually went to early intervention almost her first whole year of life. She took her first steps there with myself and her therapist on Halloween of 2012. So, she also had to go and get a molding helmet. She looked like a little hot pink Power Ranger, super cute. So I still have it. But as a first-time mom in prison, that is a very traumatic experience to have to go through. I didn't know if I did something wrong. I didn't know if she was going to be okay. I didn't know what was going to happen. But, you know, one of the people who worked in the nursery program, well, a few of them actually, outside people, not corrections officers or anything, the people that came from our children were super supportive of me and, you know, gave me that mom type pep talk when I needed it and really, really tried to help me out and do the right thing for me. And they did. They backed me. They supported me. So Bella was supposed to wear that molding helmet for, I think, like, oh God, it was so long ago. I can't remember exactly. I think it was supposed to be like 12 weeks because she was bad. Like she was bad. She was unsymmetrical and she was bad. She came up super quick and she ended up only having to wear it for 8 weeks, which was great because it was in the middle of the summer and she was super hot and it was terrible. But, you know, she came up quick, and they say come up like when your head actually pops out in the back and comes into shape. And I still have it actually still to this day. I should have showed you guys, but, I mean, I have no pictures from the hospital. Like when my daughter gets older and wants to see, like every kid does, I don't have that to give her, unfortunately. You know, and I carry that guilt of how I had her. You know, she's going to be 9 this December, and I still don't fully tell her everything yet because I don't think mentally she can hold all that yet. I think it will, I think in the future, because she's super, super intelligent, thank God, you know, I think her and I will be able to have a really realistic conversation like that. But right now, even if she says she can handle it, I don't really know if she can. And it's a lot, you know, sometimes I can't handle it. I'm a grown woman. So I was blessed that I was able to come home with her after her first birthday. I had applied for an extension. As long as you're going home within an 18-month period, you can apply after a year for an extension. I applied for the extension. I only needed it for, I went home in the end of February, so like not even 2 months, maybe like 6 or 7 weeks. So I applied for the extension and I was granted it, thank God. So we were able to go home together. But, you know, I freaked out there for a little bit. It was stressful. Like I didn't hear from them for like 3 weeks whether I was going to get this stupid extension or not. And like the day before I would have had to send Bella home, I got a letter in the mail saying, yeah, your extension's been approved. Like I was stressed, to say the least. I did not want to leave my baby, you know, I do not want her to go home. Even if I was only coming home less than 2 months later, I wanted my baby with me. You know, I think having my baby in that program really, in a sense, was a blessing because I didn't know how to be a mom. I did not know how to cut toenails or fingernails. I didn't know like what you did with the umbilical cord and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I didn't know. I never had that conversation with anyone before in my life until, you know, it's not something you think of every day until you're like, oh, so yeah, I got a kid now and I got to take care of it. You know, so I learned a lot. So like I always say, like my prison story is super different from other people, but just because I had a good experience does not mean that I am naive to the horror stories of women that I personally know as friends that have delivered. I know of people who have had babies who have passed away because of the shoddy medical that they've received or how they were chained to a bed while they delivered, which is just, I don't even know. Corrections officer or not, like you're a human freaking being, man. Like, how do you do that? We're not animals. We made mistakes. I was incarcerated. Every time I've ever gotten incarcerated is because of my substance use disorder. I'm an addict. I don't choose it. I don't want it. I am an addict who is on the recovery part of her addiction, but I will die an addict. I will never not be an addict. For the rest of my life, I will be someone who suffers from substance use disorder. And now I fly that flag high and proud because it has gotten me thus far in life, and I am able to help the people, my people. And I will claim an addict over a regular Joe any day of the week because I know how talented we are, how smart we are, how hard we fight, and how hard we struggle with what we go through. So, people seem to forget that. And unfortunately, substance use disorder is becoming the everyday norm in people's households. So I'm hoping, that will continue to change how people treat us. We're humans, and I'm a big activist now for harm reduction and Narcan training. And my life is where it is today because of everything that I've gone through. So Bella will be 9 in December. She's the love of my life. She's gorgeous. I love her. Everything and anything good about me or that has in my life is that little girl. She's my one and only baby. I never had another one. After her dad passed away, her dad killed himself. I stayed single for a long time till I met my husband, and he and I are past babies, so we just have our other babies, which are all our babies. So between my husband and I, we have 5 children, and clearly I only have 1 biological. But I appreciate you guys listening and letting me share my story, and hopefully this is the beginning of something that we can do regularly. Bye, guys.